Hey everyone! Today, we're going to talk about one of the most powerful, yet almost totally overlooked forces shaping our world, the woman farmer. She is, quite literally, the backbone of global food security. And as we're about to see, finally recognizing her isn't just a social issue. It's a massive, trillion-dollar economic opportunity.
This quote, it just cuts right to the heart of it, doesn't it? It perfectly sets up this huge paradox we're going to unpack. Our world absolutely depends on a workforce that it flat out refuses to see.
So let's start with this core idea of the invisible farmer. In the massive, complicated system of global agriculture, women are basically the glue holding the whole thing together. They plant the seeds, they tend the crops, they do the harvesting. They are absolutely essential. And yet, in the eyes of the official systems, the banks, the governments, they might as well be ghosts.
And check out this disconnect between what's real and what's on paper. In reality, women make up the huge majority of food producers in some of the most important agricultural regions on the planet. But officially, they're just helpers or farm wives. And look, this is not just about words. This misclassification makes them invisible to census takers, to banks, to agricultural support programs. It basically denies them access to everything they need to succeed.
And that is why the UN's declaration for 2026 is such a big deal. This isn't just a year for celebration or a pat on the back. No, it's a global strategic call to action. It's a campaign to start tearing down the systemic barriers that have held these women back for centuries. Because when a farmer is invisible, the economic fallout is very, very real. That invisibility leads us directly to something economists call the gender yield gap. It's not just a theory. It's a measurable, documented difference in how much food is produced on farms run by women versus farms run by men. And it is a big gap. So that begs the obvious question, right? Why this 20 to 30% gap? And let's be super clear on the answer. It has absolutely nothing to do with skill or work ethic. It's because women are effectively forced to farm with one hand tied behind their backs. Why? Because of a profound lack of access to the exact same resources men get. Okay, so we really have to understand these barriers. They aren't just separate problems, they're all interconnected, and they create this vicious cycle that's incredibly hard to break. Let's walk through the four biggest ones. First up, the land itself. Land is everything in farming. It's your collateral to get a loan, it's your family security, it's your identity as a farmer. Yet worldwide, women own less than 15% of it. If you don't have a title to your land, you basically can't prove you're a farmer, which locks you out of nearly all official support. So if you don't have land, what happens next? You can't get money. That's barrier number 2. Because women often don't have that collateral, banks just see them as high risk. This pushes them towards sketchy, informal lenders with insane interest rates, and it just crushes any chance to invest in better seeds, fertilizer, or even simple equipment.
Third is the knowledge and technology divide. Think about it. When agricultural experts visit a village to do training, they're usually men, and they often speak only to the male head of household. At the same time, women are way less likely to own a smartphone, which cuts them off from a whole world of modern farming apps, weather alerts, and market price information.
And finally, there's the barrier that might be the hardest to see, but it's everywhere: time. Women farmers carry what's called the double burden. They do all the farm work and all the unpaid work: cooking, cleaning, fetching water, caring for kids and the elderly. This time poverty means fewer hours in the day to actually work the fields, go to a training session, or travel to the market.
Okay, so we've laid out all these massive problems. It sounds pretty bleak, right? But this is where the story pivots. Because fixing this isn't just about doing the right thing. The UN is framing this as smart economics. Closing this gap isn't a cost, it's a truly massive global opportunity.
Let's just look at the numbers. First, 30%. That's how much yields on women's farms could increase if they simply had the same access to resources as men. Just stop and imagine that. Increasing food production by nearly a third on millions and millions of farms all over the world.
And what does that 30% jump actually mean for people? Well, it translates to this. We could reduce the number of hungry people in the world by an estimated 45 million. To put that in perspective, that's like feeding the entire population of a country like Argentina.
And here's the headline number: $1 trillion. That's how much could be added to the global GDP if we closed the gender gap in farming. The message here is just undeniable. empowering women farmers isn't just one tool to fight poverty, it's arguably the single most effective one we have. But, $1 trillion, 45 million people, these numbers are so big they can almost feel unreal. To get the real power here, we have to see what happens when these barriers are removed for just one person. Let's put a human face on these giant statistics. Meet Kalyani Singh in India. She's a college graduate who went back to her village to farm, and everybody was skeptical. Farming was a man's job, but she didn't listen. She adopted modern irrigation and better seeds, and guess what? Her tomato yields tripled. But she didn't stop there. Now she runs her own training center, empowering other women to do the same. One woman's success is lifting up an entire community. Or take Nane Fran in the Philippines. She learned climate-resilient farming techniques. And when devastating typhoons came through and wiped out her neighbors' traditional farms, hers didn't just survive, it thrived. Now she's a mentor, proving that empowering women is also one of our best strategies for adapting to climate change. So these stories prove it's possible, right? This isn't just a theory. The question now is, how do we scale this? How do we make stories like Kalyani's and Nane Fran's the rule, not the exception? Well, the roadmap for 2026 is all about concrete policy changes. And here's the 4-point plan. You'll see it directly attacks those 4 barriers we just talked about. First, for the land barrier, we need legal reform so women can actually own and inherit land. Second, for the money barrier, smarter government budgets that specifically target women farmers. Third, to bridge the knowledge gap, we need real digital inclusion. And fourth, to deal with time poverty, we have to recognize that unpaid care work by investing in things like clean water and childcare in rural areas. At the end of the day, as we head towards 2026, it all comes down to this idea. This isn't about just admiring how resilient women are in the face of impossible odds. It's about fundamentally changing the system to actually reward that resilience with a real, tangible opportunity. So, I'll leave you with this one last thought. For decades, we've been looking for these really complex, high-tech solutions to global hunger. But what if the answer has been right there in front of us the entire time? What if the single most powerful thing we can do is to finally, truly see, support, and empower the women who are already feeding the world?